Coming up today, more terror in Turkey. At least 36 people have been killed and scores more injured after suicide bombers attack Istanbul's main airport. The co-leaders of Korea's minor opposition People's Party have resigned, taking responsibility for some of their party members allegedly pocketing tens of thousands of dollars in illegal political funds. Plus, British Prime Minister David Cameron faces EU leaders for the first time since the UK voted to leave. He says the EU wants the closest links with Britain after it withdraws. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 29th of June. You're tuned into our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. We begin with news that's sure to shake up Korea's political landscape. The co-leaders of the minor opposition People's Party, An Cheol-soo and Chun Jung-bae, have resigned to take responsibility for a burgeoning corruption scandal within the party's ranks. The announcement just came in and follows hours of discussion among party leaders during a closed-door meeting this morning. Party leaders had reportedly tried to persuade the two not to resign, saying now is the time to resolve the scandal, not to run away from reality, but to no avail. Two of the party's lawmakers, Park Son-suk and Kim Soo-min, are currently under investigation over allegations they forged contracts with PR agencies and received tens of thousands of dollars in kickbacks. Another scene of devastation in Istanbul after yet another horrific terror attack in Turkey. This time passengers in the country's biggest airport were the target. Although no official response yet, local media are pointing the blame squarely at the Islamic State militant group. Let's get the latest from our Hwang Ho-jun, who's on the line. Ho-jun.
Mark, after gunfire and a series of deadly explosions ripped through Istanbul's Ataturk International Airport Tuesday evening, the airport is now back in operation. Despite the carnage, flights in and out resumed at 10 a.m. Korea time, around 2 hours ago. Turkish officials have confirmed at least 36 people were killed and nearly 150 injured, but the number of casualties is expected to rise, likely making this attack the deadliest one yet, as the Ankara bombing in March left 37 dead. Some victims are reported to be foreigners, but the nationalities have not yet been released. Although there weren't any Korean national carriers in the airport at the time of the blast, Korea's foreign ministry is in close contact with the Korean embassy in Turkey to see if any Korean nationals were caught up in the attack. Updated travel warnings to Turkey have been issued around the world, including the U.S., the UK, and Australia. At this moment, we know there were 3 bombers who exchanged gunfire with security guards and then detonated what are believed to be suicide bets. Turkey has been rocked by a series of terror attacks carried out both by ISIS and Kurdish militant separatists over the past year, but U.S. officials and local media are saying this attack bears the hallmarks of the Islamic State militant group. We must stress, however, that no official claim of responsibility has been made by ISIS. Condemnation of the attack has been pouring in from around the world. In a statement, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon expressed his condolences to the families of the victims and said he hoped the perpetrators would be identified and brought to justice. The U.S. government says it remains steadfast supporting Turkey and has vowed to confront the threat of terrorism. Located on the European side of Istanbul, Ataturk International Airport is the main airport people use when traveling in and out of Turkey and is the 3rd busiest airport in Europe. It has been considered a vulnerable target for some time, so the airport not only has X-ray scanners in the security checkpoints, but also in the entry to the terminal. And that's where the blast occurred. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Ho-jun, for that report. Now, in other news, South Korean Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-an is set for talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing's Great Hall of the People today. Officials say they'll discuss cooperative measures against North Korea's recent missile launches and its ongoing nuclear program. Hwang and President Xi will also exchange ideas on ways to boost academic and cultural ties. After his schedule in Beijing ends this evening, Hwang will travel to Shenyang, the last stop of his 5-day visit to China. North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly gets underway today, a process widely seen as cementing Kim Jong-un's grip on power. The meeting is a follow-up to the regime's once-in-a-generation Workers' Party Congress held last month. Connie Kim reports.
North Korea holds its major parliamentary meeting on Wednesday, where follow-up measures to the landmark Workers' Party Congress in May are expected to be decided. An official from Seoul's Unification Ministry says the meeting is expected to reshuffle personnel and discuss parliamentary revisions to give North Korean leader Kim Jong-un complete control over government organizations and the party. The assembly is the highest branch of state power in North Korea that establishes basic principles for domestic and foreign policy, adopts a state budget, and approves decisions by the state leadership. Most North Korea watchers in Seoul say the North will give the young leader a new title to cement its control in the long term. There's speculation Pyongyang will restore the Central People's Committee, established by North Korea's founder Kim Il-sung, and bestow Kim Jong-un chairmanship of the committee. Another issue that's likely to be discussed is the North's 5-year economic development plan that was brought up during the Workers' Party Congress. South Korea's Unification Ministry says the results of the meeting will be closely monitored to detect how new changes will affect the regime's political landscape. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
South Korea, the United States and Japan are set to conduct their first trilateral missile defense exercise in Hawaii to counter the threats posed by North Korea. The joint defense drill, slated for Tuesday, is based on a hypothetical missile attack by the regime and aims to focus on building cooperation, sharing information, as well as tracking an enemy missile's flight path. The three nations will each deploy an Aegis destroyer, with South Korea's Sejong the Great destroyer taking part. The US will also deploy its primary naval anti-missile system. A South Korean official says, though, that no actual missiles will be fired during the drill. North Korea has test fired a number of missiles this year, with the most recent taking place just last Wednesday. European leaders have been meeting in Brussels to urge Britain to lay out its plans for leaving the EU as quickly as possible. A senior EU official says the legal mechanism to withdraw should be triggered as soon as Britain has a new Prime Minister. Park Jong-hong has the details.
Amid tensions ahead of and during the summit, day one of the two-day meeting revealed that both sides are poles apart. Speaking in Brussels on Tuesday, the British Prime Minister said he wanted a, quote, constructive divorce from the European Union.
I want that process to be as constructive as possible, and I hope the outcome can be as constructive as possible, because, of course, while we're leaving the European Union, we mustn't be turning our backs on Europe.
Emerging from the meeting, Mr. Cameron expressed regret over Britain's decision and said he failed to keep Britain and the EU together, even though he tried. EU leaders have been stepping up pressure, saying they want Britain to swiftly notify its departure by invoking Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty. They said that without it, they would not enter into talks, either formal or informal.
I would like to underline very, very clearly, without the notification from the UK, we will not start any negotiations on the divorce process or on future relations.
Britain has been hoping to put off the notification until after October or hold preliminary talks before it officially declares its departure. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says the EU won't allow Britain to cherry-pick the benefits during the negotiations process, which is expected to take 2 years, adding that the UK should not expect to abandon its duties while still getting privileges in a single market. Park Jong-hong, Arirang News.
Now, it's taken a few days, but the world's financial markets are finally settling down after the post-Brexit rout, and Asian stock markets are continuing the positive lead set by Wall Street and European markets overnight. The benchmark KOSPI opened up 0.5% today, and it has maintained its upward streak, reaching the 1960 level as of 11:30 a.m. Korea time, about 40 minutes ago. That's up 1.25% from Tuesday's close. The tech-heavy Kosdaq was also up around 2%. The Japanese Nikkei opened 1.3% higher, while China's Shanghai Composite rose around 0.5% in early trading. On Tuesday, On Wall Street, the Dow, S&P 500 and the Nasdaq all finished higher as investors look for bargains after massive sell-offs due to the unexpected Brexit vote. And Korea's benchmark KOSPI has recorded a general drop for the first half of the year. This puts the nation in 11th place among G20 nations in terms of its average stock growth. Kim Jong-un has more.
The Korea Exchange said Tuesday the benchmark KOSPI has dropped around 1.7% from the end of last year as of the Monday's close. This puts Korea in 11th place in the G20 in terms of stock index growth rates. On average, the stock market indexes of the 20 nations have dropped at a rate of around 3% during the same period. Emerging markets such as Argentina, Russia, and Brazil recorded the highest growth, with Argentina's index rising nearly 18% during the first 6 months. The United States came in at 10th, posting a roughly 1.5% drop, while China and Japan placed 18th and 19th. Britain, which is struggling in the aftermath of the country's decision to leave the EU, ranked 13th, with its benchmark index dropping around 4%. Industry-wise, Korea's pharmaceutical shares enjoyed the biggest growth, of over 20%, followed by shares of gas and electronics, which grew by 15% and nearly 7% each. Stocks for food companies, on the other hand, recorded the biggest drop at a rate of around 16%. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
Now, staying with economic news, Korea's business sentiment continues to remain rather sluggish. The Bank of Korea's Business Sentiment Index came in at 71 in June, the same as last month. A reading under 100 means that pessimists outnumber optimists. The figure had been on an upward streak for 3 straight months since February, but the trend was rather short-lived as the government-led corporate overhaul program dampened business outlook. This as global demand, especially in China, remains subdued. The restructuring of Korea's shipping and shipbuilding industries is likely to result in massive layoffs. Korean companies are placed in the top 10 in 7 industries in terms of global sales, showing the country's competitive muscle. But several Korean firms also placed out of the top 10 in 9 industries, indicating there's still a lot of room for improvement. EG1 has more.
Korean companies rank among the world's best across a variety of industries. A study by market researcher CEO Score released Tuesday shows Korean firms in 7 industries rank in the top 10 worldwide in terms of sales. The study surveyed 16 major industries that Korea has some level of competitiveness in. The findings were based on the sales figures for 2015. And multi-sector businesses like Samsung were ranked according to each unit's performance in individual industries. The method puts Samsung at a disadvantage against single business firms like Apple and Intel, but it still garnered positive results. Samsung Electronics placed first in the consumer electronics industry, with total sales for 2015 adding up to about $39.8 billion. Sony was second with about 30% of Samsung's sales. Korean tech company LG Electronics took third. Samsung also placed well in the semiconductor industry, coming in second with sales of $40.4 billion, or 73% of first-place finisher Intel. SK Hynix, which ranked second in the domestic market, ranked 5th in the global market. POSCO came second in the steel industry with about $49 billion in sales, just under 23% less than first-place finisher ArcelorMittal. A number of other Korean firms ranked in the top 10 in 4 other industries, including tobacco and automobiles. But there is room for improvement. Korean firms placed out of the top 10 in 9 industries, including cosmetics and telecommunications. Korea's market leaders in healthcare, internet service, and retail accounted for less than 10% of the sales of the world's top firms. 이지원, Arirang News.
The United Nations has elected a new round of non-permanent members to the 15-member Security Council based on regional rotations. The 5 seats were up for grabs this year, requiring 2/3 of votes at the General Assembly. After 5 rounds of voting, Bolivia, Ethiopia, Sweden and Kazakhstan won hands down. But there was a deadlock between Italy and the Netherlands as they each garnered 95 votes. The two countries came to a compromise, though, proposing that they share the seat and split the 2-year term between them. The newly appointed countries will begin their term in January 2017. Well, that's all we have for now on this Wednesday lunchtime here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for watching. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next scheduled bulletin coming up at 3 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.